There's a strange feeling a lot of people carry now. It feels like living out of a suitcase, even when you haven't gone anywhere. Homes feel temporary, jobs feel temporary, cities feel temporary, even relationships sometimes feel temporary. You don't fully unpack, you don't fully settle, you don't even fully relax. Because something in the back of your mind whispers, don't get too comfortable. This episode is about that feeling, why nothing feels permanent anymore, and what that does to the way people live. For most modern history, adulthood was about locking things in. You picked a place, you picked a job, you built a routine, you put down your roots. Performance wasn't boring, it was rewarded. It meant safety, it meant predictability, it meant you could plan beyond just next month. Life had chapters, and chapters carried weight. Then the world changed its values. Flexibility became a virtue, mobility became a selling point, adaptability became survival. Don't get stuck. Always be ready to pivot. Stay liquid. At first, that sounded empowering, but flexibility without stability turns into fragility. If everything can change at any moment, nothing feels safe enough to invest in. Housing is the clearest example. Short leases, rising rents, unpredictable renewals, corporate landlords, and sudden moves. You don't paint your walls, you don't plant in the garden, you don't imagine yourself there for more than 3 to 5 years. You live around your space, not inside of it. A home that can disappear never fully becomes a home. Work quietly followed that same path. Pensions vanished, long term loyalty stopped being rewarded, layoffs became routine, careers turned into ladders you're expected to keep climbing or fall off. You're encouraged to think of yourself as replaceable and expected to act like you're indispensable. That contradiction eats at people. Why invest your identity in something that can vanish with just an email? Ownership quietly faded. You don't own movies, you don't own music, you don't even own software. Everything is rented, licensed, or just temporary. Even the things meant to bring joy come with expiration dates. When nothing belongs to you, you stop building an emotional attachment. You consume and you quietly move on. This impermanence leaks into human connection. When everything else is unstable, people become cautious. They hedge emotionally. They keep exit strategies. They avoid long term promises. Not because they don't care, but because they've learned how fragile everything is. A world that doesn't commit teaches people not to commit either. Here's the quiet damage. When nothing feels permanent, life feels shallow. Even when it's busy, you're always adjusting, always adapting, and always bracing. You don't feel anchored, you feel suspended. Like a character stuck between zones, waiting for the next loading screen. That constant limbo drains energy and erodes any meaning. This isn't about longing for the past. The past had problems, serious ones, but Performance provided something critical, a sense of continuity. Without continuity, identity weakens. You stop asking, who am I becoming? And you start asking, how do I survive the next change? That's not growth, that's just endurance. When performance disappears, people adapt. They avoid commitments, they delay decisions, they keep things light. Not because they want less, but because they've learned how easily things can fall apart. This is defensive living. It looks like apathy from the outside, but it feels like self-protection on the inside. Performance was never about changing. It was about having something solid. Well, things changed around you. A home base, a steady anchor, a place to return to. Games understand this. You explore dangerous zones, but you always have a hearthstone. Modern life removed the hearthstone. If nothing feels permanent anymore, you're not imagining it. You're living in a world that optimizes for flexibility without protecting stability. But humans need roots as much as they need wings. And maybe the next chapter isn't about rejecting change, but rebuilding places, systems, and relationships that are allowed to last. Because performance isn't stagnation, it's the soil where real growth happens. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and don't mistake survival mode for the way life is supposed to feel. There was a time when choice felt empowering. You stood at a crossroads, you weighed your options, and you picked a path. Choice meant freedom. Today, choice feels different. Today, you open a menu, endless options, infinite scrolling, dozens of brands, plans, tiers, upgrades, and bundles. And somehow, you still end up paying the same amount as everyone else. This episode is about that contradiction. Why modern life looks full of choices, but quietly funnels people into the same outcomes. This is the illusion of choice. Once upon a time, the choices you made actually reshaped your future. Where you lived, where you worked, what you bought, how you spent your time. Pick one job over the other, and your life diverged. Pick one city, and your cost changes dramatically. Pick one product, and you paid more or less. Choices carried weight. It felt like skill expression in a game. Pick the right talents, play well, progress faster. The rules were legible. Then the world added more choices. Streaming services, delivery apps, career paths, side hustles, insurance plans, phone plans, subscription tiers, and financing options for everything. On paper, this looks like freedom, but freedom depends on one thing: whether different choices lead to meaningful different outcomes. And that's where the illusion starts to form. Take housing, for example. You can choose New York City, Chicago, or California. Different vibe, different culture, and different skylines. But rent? strictly similar across all. Or food. You can choose to cook at home, pick it up, or for delivery. Different experiences, same expensive result. How about work? You can choose corporate, freelance, gig, or a hybrid. Different schedules, same stress levels, same precarity, same lack of margin. The choice exists, yes, but the outcome barely changes. That's not freedom. That's branching dialogue that leads to the same cutscene. Modern systems are built for optimization, not your optimization, their optimization. Algorithms learn what keeps you engaged, what keeps you paying, subscribed, and renewing. They don't care which option you pick, as long as you pick the one that keeps you inside the system. It's like being offered 5 quest lines, all designed to send you back to the same NPC with the same reward. Choice becomes a cosmetic, a skin, not a stat boost. Here's where the illusion becomes dangerous. When outcomes are similar, but choices are abundant, failure feels personal. If everything is a choice, then struggling must be your fault. You picked the wrong city, the wrong job, the wrong plan, the wrong strategy. But what if the system was designed this way? What if the stress isn't a mistake, but a baseline? That realization hits hard, because it means you didn't fail the game. The game was tuned this way. When choices don't change outcomes, they stop feeling empowering. They start feeling exhausting. Every decision carries pressure. Every option feels risky. And every mistake feels irreversible. You spend energy choosing without gaining any progress. That's how people end up tired before the day even starts. Not because life is harder, but because it's constantly asking you to decide without ever rewarding the decision. Look closely at modern choice models. You don't choose to buy anymore, you choose to subscribe. You don't opt in once, you opt in forever. Canceling feels like a loss. Downgrading feels like failure. This isn't accidental. It turns choice into a one-way door. Once inside, every path keeps you paying. In game terms, it's like respeccing costs more every time. Eventually, you just stop experimenting. The illusion of choice pairs perfectly with fragility. You can change jobs, but there's no guarantee the next one is any safer. You can move, but costs are higher everywhere. You can choose a cheaper option, but quality and stability often drop with it. Choice without safety isn't freedom, it's just pressure. And pressure sustained long enough turns into anxiety. This is why people are pulling back. Quiet quitting, minimalism, subscription purges, career downshifting, opting out wherever possible, not because they hate choice, but because they're tired of fake choices. They want fewer decisions that matter more. They want paths that actually diverge. They want effort to change the outcome again. Here's the hopeful turn. Real choice still exists, it's just harder to find. It shows up when costs are transparent and outcomes are different. Real choice feels lighter, not heavier. It doesn't demand constant optimization. It allows room to breathe, and people know it when they find it, because it feels like agency instead of stress. The illusion of choice works best when you believe every outcome is on you. Seeing the pattern breaks the spell. You stop blaming yourself for systematic convergences. You stop obsessing over perfect decisions. You stop mistaking pressure for freedom. And in that clarity, something important returns. Peace. Not because the world got easier, but because you understand the rules. And once you understand the rules, you stop fighting the wrong enemies. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and don't confuse endless menus with real freedom. There was a time when adulthood came with checkpoints. Clear moments where you knew you had crossed into something new. You moved out. You got your first real job. You bought a home. You got married and you had kids. You didn't have to guess whether you were doing okay. Life told you. But now, a lot of people are stuck in a strange in-between. Not young, but not settled. Just floating. This episode is about that feeling when adulthood didn't disappear, it just stopped giving you feedback. In games, progress is obvious. You level up, new abilities unlock, the world responds to you differently. Adulthood used to feel like that. Each milestone came with social recognition and internal certainty. You felt older, more stable, more legitimate. The milestones weren't just personal goals, they were shared expectations. And shared expectations are powerful. They make uncertainty tolerable. Here's the quiet truth. Adulthood milestones didn't disappear. They became harder to reach, later to arrive, and less guaranteed. Home ownership used to be early adulthood. Now it's midlife, if ever. Marriage used to follow stability. Now stability often never comes first. Kids used to be what was next. Now they're if we can afford it. The milestones are still there. They're just gated between systems most people can't clear. It's like the quest still exists, but the requirements tripled. This created a new life stage. Almost there. Almost stable. Almost saving. Almost ready. People live for years, even decades, in this holding pattern. Not because they aren't trying, but because progress doesn't stack the way it used to. When milestones don't arrive, self-doubt fills the gap. You start asking yourself questions that used to answer themselves. Am I behind? Did I mess up? Is something wrong with me? That's a heavy thing to carry quietly. Failure hurts, but ambiguity is worse. If you fail, at least you know where you stand. But when there are no milestones, no clear markers, and no visible progress, you don't know how to judge your own life. You're busy, responsible, and tired, but you don't feel arrived. It's like grinding for hours without the XP bar ever moving. Another subtle shift happened too. Milestones used to be communal. Housewarmings, weddings, baby showers, retirement parties. Now, many people hit the milestones privately, or just not at all. No ceremony, no applause, no moment of recognition. When progress isn't acknowledged, it's easy to believe it isn't real. This is one of the strangest side effects. People feel young because they haven't hit traditional milestones. They feel old because they're exhausted. They're paying bills, managing responsibilities, caring for others, but without the markers, time feels distorted. You don't feel like you're becoming something. You feel like you're just enduring. That confusion cuts deep. Milestones do something important. They give meaning to your effort. Without them, effort feels endless. You keep going, but you don't know what you're moving toward. That's when burnout shows up. Not from working too hard, but from working without narrative closure. Humans don't just need progress, they need chapters. Here's the hopeful part. People didn't stop needing milestones. They started inventing new ones. Paying off a credit card, reaching a savings goal, moving to a city that feels right, choosing peace over prestige, setting healthy boundaries, staying healthy, and surviving a harder year than the last. These milestones don't come with ceremonies, but they are real. They just don't look like the old ones. There is no longer one path, no universal timeline, no shared checklist. That's liberating and deeply unsettling. Without a script, people must author their own meaning. That's powerful, but very heavy, especially when the world keeps changing mid-sentence. If adulthood feels unclear, if you don't know how to measure your own progress, if you feel suspended between stages, you are not broken. You are not late. You didn't miss the lesson. The map changed. Milestones didn't disappear. They fragmented. And learning how to recognize your own progress might be the most adult task there is now. Not because it's easy, but because it's honest. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and don't let a missing ceremony convince you that your effort doesn't count. There's a moment almost everyone recognizes. You're standing in a parking lot, keys in your hand, a car that isn't quite yours, but also isn't not yours either. It gets you to work, it gets you to a grocery store, it gets you through life. And every month, it asks for something in return. Not gratitude, not care, money. This episode is about that quiet trade. Car loans and car leases, and how something that used to represent freedom slowly became one of the most expensive obligations people carry just to stay afloat. Cars used to mean independence. You bought one, you paid it off, and you drove it until it fell apart. No subscription, no app, no ongoing negotiation. Owning a car meant you could move, and movement meant opportunity. Where you lived didn't trap you anymore. Where you worked didn't cage you. The car was a tool, not a lifestyle. Then life spread out. Jobs moved further away. Public transit stagnated. Housing pushed outward. Cities hollowed, and suburbs expanded. Cars stopped being optional. You couldn't just choose not to have one, not without giving something up. A job, time, access, safety. Mobility became a requirement, and requirements are powerful leverage. Once cars became mandatory, the pricing model changed. Prices climbed, features locked behind trims, technologies inflated costs, repair complexity exploded. No more fixing it in your garage. Suddenly, paying cash wasn't realistic for most people, so loans stretched out longer. 48 months became normal, 60 months became common, 72 months became standard, 84 months stopped raising eyebrows. Debt stopped being temporary, it became part of a lifestyle. Leasing quietly crept in. Lower monthly payments, new car every few years, warranty coverage, predictability. For people already stretched thin, leasing felt like relief. Not ownership, but manageability. But leases came with rules: miles, wear, fees, and end-of-term decisions. You're not driving freely. You're playing with parameters. Like renting a mount that disappears if you wander too far from the path. Car prices didn't just rise, they detached. Vehicles that once cost $20,000 now push upwards of $35,000, $45,000, or even $60,000. Monthly payments followed. What used to be a few $100s now rivals rent in some areas. And here's the quiet truth: most people didn't upgrade because they wanted luxury. They upgraded because used cars became unreliable, repair costs exploded, safety tech became non-negotiable, old vehicles couldn't survive modern commutes. The choice wasn't indulgence, it was survival dressed up as consumption. Car debt hits differently. You feel it every day. You see the car, you use it, and you depend on it. And every scratch feels personal. Every noise feels ominous. Every repair feels like betrayal. Because the car isn't just a possession, it's your ability to function. When your mobility is financed, anxiety rides shotgun. Here's a mechanic most people don't see coming: negative equity. You owe more than the car is worth. The loan outpaces depreciation. Life changes before the debt clears. So the balance rolls forward. Debt stacked on top of debt, loan into loan, and payment into payment. It's not recklessness. It's what happens when necessity meets financing. In game terms, it's stacking debuffs without a cleanse. Car debt shapes decisions quietly. You don't leave a bad job if your car payment depends on it. You don't take risks if your commute is non-negotiable. You don't downshift easily when your transportation costs are locked in. The car became a silent boss fight that influences every other choice, not because you love it, but because you need it. Advice culture loves simple answers. Just buy used. Just drive a beater. Just avoid loans. But cheap cars aren't cheap anymore. Repairs are not predictable. Breakdowns cost jobs. Reliability has value, and it's priced accordingly. The question isn't why did you finance a car? It's why is basic reliability so expensive? Here's the uncomfortable realization. For many people, car ownership is no longer ownership. It's a subscription to mobility, monthly payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and registrations. You don't finish paying for transportation, you just keep paying. Car debt doesn't feel like progress. It doesn't build equity. It doesn't grow wealth. And it doesn't open doors long term. It just maintains access. That's why people feel stuck. They're spending heavily just to remain functional, not moving forward, but holding position, being stuck in that same holding pattern. If car loans and leases feel heavier than they should, you're not imagining it. You're living in a world where movement is mandatory and mobility is monetized. The car didn't betray you. The system wrapped necessity in debt and called it a choice. Understanding this matters. Not to shame yourself, but to stop internalizing a burden that was never meant to be personal. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and remember, when movement costs this much, standing still isn't laziness, it's exhaustion. There's a sound people live with now. Not a noise you hear with your ears, but a low hum that you carry in your chest. It's there when you wake up. It's there when you check your phone. It's there when you try to relax. Nothing is actively wrong, yet your body doesn't believe that. This episode is about that hum. Why so many people live in a state of permanent anxiety. Not panic, not crisis, but constant readiness for something, anything, to go wrong. Anxiety wasn't always ambient. It had triggers, clear threats, defined danger. You worried because something specific was happening. When it passed, your body stood down. Like combat ending in a game, music fades, and you breathe again. But modern life rarely exits this combat. Today's threats aren't dramatic, but they are persistent. Rent increases, healthcare costs, job insecurity, debt. None of these hit once and end. They rotate. Just enough that your nervous system never resets. You're not panicking, you're bracing. Human brains evolved to handle danger, but not endless ambiguity. We're good at fight, flight, recovery. We're terrible at waiting indefinitely, not knowing, and being fine for now. Modern life lives in the for now stage. Jobs are fine for now. Housing is fine for now. Health is fine for now. Your brain treats for now as an unfinished task, so it stays alert. Anxiety spikes when margin disappears. Savings thin out, support systems weaken, and safety nets fray. When one bad month can undo years of effort, your body stays vigilant. This isn't in your imagination. This is pattern recognition, like walking through a zone where mobs respawn too fast. You never sit down. Past generations worried locally. Now we worry globally. Wars, markets, climates, politics, layoffs, crises live streamed in our pockets. The brain cannot tell the difference between knowing about danger and being in danger, so every headline is treated like incoming danger, even when you're safe on the couch. Here's where it turns inward. When anxiety is everywhere, people assume it's something wrong with them. I should be calmer. I should be grateful. Why can't I relax? But relaxation requires safety, and safety requires predictability. Telling someone to calm down in an unpredictable world is like telling a character to regen while enemies are still aggroed. People try to fix anxiety with rest, vacations, weekends, days off. But rest doesn't help if the system you're resting from is still unresolved. You don't recover from combat by closing your eyes for 10 seconds and jumping back in. Recovery needs downtime. Modern life does not offer this downtime. If we step back for a minute, permanent anxiety isn't weakness, it's adaptation. Your nervous system has learned things change fast. Safety is temporary, mistakes are costly, and help is limited. So it stays alert. That's not broken behavior, that's survival logic applied too long. Every era had stress. But stress used to be episodic, now it's environmental. Like living in a dungeon with constant ticking damage. You can survive it, but you never feel whole. This story isn't about quick fixes. The hum quits when life becomes predictable again. Buffers return, systems begin to feel fair. Progress feels real again. Individual coping helps, but systematic calm matters more. You can't meditate your way out of a world that keeps pulling the rug out from under you. If you feel tense, even on good days, if calm feels fragile, if peace feels conditional, you're not defective. You are responding correctly to a world that never signals safe. The goal isn't to numb the anxiety. It's to rebuild a life where your nervous system is finally allowed to stand down. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You've been on alert for far too long. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and just know that the toughest zones were never meant to be permanent. There's a strange moment that happens quietly. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, working, budgeting, being careful, and showing up. Then you look around, and it feels like other people are moving faster than you. Not sprinting, not rushing, but gliding. Buying homes, traveling, upgrading their lifestyle, taking risks that you can't even imagine taking. Same country, same economy, and same calendar year. Completely different experiences. This episode is about that split. The two-speed economy and what it feels like to live on the slower side of it. This doesn't feel like old school inequality. It doesn't feel like haves and haves not. It feels more subtle than that. It feels like people with a buffer and people without a buffer. Two players, same level, but different gear. One mistake is survivable for one and catastrophic for the other. That's the real divide. Buffer changes everything. Savings, family support, home equities, paid off debt, predictable healthcare. With buffer, life feels flexible. Without buffer, life feels fragile. Two people can earn similar incomes and live in completely different realities, all based on what happens after the paycheck arrives. This isn't about luxury, it's about margin. Here's the tricky part. The fast lane doesn't look fast. People with buffer don't feel rich, they feel calm. They can take a job risk. They can move cities. They can say no. To them, this feels normal. To everyone else, it feels impossible. That's why the divide causes such resentment, not because of jealousy, but because of misunderstanding. This is where the system gets cruel. The rules appear the same for everyone. Work hard, save, invest, take opportunities. But the consequences of mistakes are widely different. Miss a paycheck with a buffer? It's annoying. Miss a paycheck without a buffer? It can be devastating. It's like playing on different difficulty settings without ever being told. The slow lane doesn't feel slow because people aren't trying. It feels slow because everything requires caution. You don't take risks, you don't experiment, and you don't move freely. Rather, you calculate, you wait, and you brace. Progress exists, but it's fragile. One unexpected hit resets months of effort. That's not laziness. That's living in survival mode. Living in the slow lane changes how you think. You stop dreaming big. You stop planning long term. You stop trusting momentum. You think in weeks rather than years. Meanwhile, the fast lane plans in decades. This creates two cultures in the same society: builders and stabilizers. Neither is wrong, but they don't speak the same language anymore. This is where friction explodes. Just invest. Just buy earlier. Just take risks. Just move. That advice assumes buffer. Without buffer, those moves feel reckless. So advice meant to help lands like judgment. Not because it's evil or misguided, but because its context is blind. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The fast lane benefits from the slow lane. Stable workers, reliable renters, cautious consumers, risk absorbers. The system quietly depends on people who can't afford to fail. Unfortunately, this is not conspiracy, it's structure. Inequality always existed, but this split feels sharper because the middle lost its buffer. What used to be one wide road became two narrow paths. And falling from the fast lane to the slow lane is now easier than ever. So everyone feels tense, even people moving quickly. Most people aren't asking to be in the fast lane. They just want a cushion, a second chance, some room to breathe, and the ability to recover. They want one mistake, not to define the rest of their lives. That's not entitlement, that's humanity. If you feel like life is harder than it should be, it's not because you're slow. You're navigating a different lane. And once you see the two-speed economy clearly, you stop blaming yourself for not keeping pace with people playing on a completely different version of the game. The goal isn't to shame the fast lane or to glorify the grind. It's to ask a better question. Why did we design a world where safety itself became a luxury? Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and don't confuse speed with worth. There used to be something underneath people. You didn't think about it much. You didn't even see it. And you didn't thank it, but it was there. A safety net. You could fall a little and not lose everything. Miss a paycheck, get sick, have a bad month, or just make a mistake. Life would wobble, but it wouldn't collapse. This episode is about what happens when that net thins and then quietly disappears. Not all at once, not dramatically, just enough that people stop taking risks and start living in fear of falling. The safety net wasn't about luxury. It didn't guarantee happiness. It didn't promise success. It promised recovery. You could lose a job and find another one. You could get sick and not be ruined. You could make a mistake and learn from it. The net didn't stop falls. It made them survivable. That mattered more than most people realized. This wasn't a sudden collapse. It frayed at the edges. Healthcare added deductibles and surprise bills. Unemployment benefits shrank and expired faster. Housing became unforgiving. Savings stopped accumulating. Families moved further and further apart, and communities thinned. Each strand weakened quietly. no alarms, and no sirens, just fewer second chances. Here's the lived-in reality. One missed paycheck can mean eviction. One medical bill can mean debt spirals. One car repair can mean a job loss. One layoff can mean years upon years of setback. Not because people are reckless, but because there's no buffer left. The safety net used to absorb shocks. Now shocks go straight to the player, full damage and all. Safety nets didn't just shrink, they became harder to access, more conditional. Paperwork, waiting periods, eligibility tests, all this stigma. Needing help became a trial in and of itself. In game terms, the healing potion now requires 3 side quests, a cooldown, and proof you're injured enough, but not too injured. So, people just stop asking. When you know there's no net, your behavior changes. You don't take the risks that you once took. You don't speak up. You don't experiment. And you don't leave bad situations. You cling. Not because you're weak, but because falling is fatal. This is how creativity dies quietly, how ambition shrinks, how people accept less than they deserve, because less feels safer than nothing. Here's the twist. Even people doing well feel it. Because when the net disappears, everyone knows they're one slip away from joining the slow lane. That's why anxiety spreads upward. The fear isn't poverty, it's precarity, not knowing how far the fall would go. This is where everything connects. Work used to offer protection. Job equals income equals stability. Now, work feels transactional and fragile. You can work hard, do everything right, and still lose everything overnight. When effort no longer guarantees safety, motivation changes. People stop investing emotionally. They disengage. They protect themselves. Not laziness. Self-defense. Without a safety net, people trade long-term growth for short-term survival. They choose stability over fulfillment, certainty over ambition, and safety over growth. Individually rational, collectively devastating. A society that pushes failure produces people who never risk success. The disappearance of the safety net gets framed as morality. You should have prepared. You should have saved. You should have known better. But moralizing replaces mechanics. It turns systematic fragility into personal shame. The truth is simpler and colder. You cannot individual responsibility your way out of a missing net. A real safety net does one thing very well. It allows people to recover. Not forever, and not without effort. Just enough to stand back up. This is not charity. It needs to be infrastructure. Games with no respawn loses players fast. Societies without recovery loses hope. If life feels riskier than it should, if mistakes feel permanent, if you're afraid to breathe wrong, you're not imagining it. You're living without a safety net. And when the net disappears, fear takes its place. The solution isn't shame. It isn't tougher advice. It isn't pretending things are fine. It's rebuilding systems that allow people to fall and stand back up again. Because a world without second chances doesn't produce strength. It produces silence. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and don't let a missing net convince you that you were never meant to climb. There's a moment that comes after you finally understand something heavy. Not relief, not happiness, just a quiet exhale. That's the moment this episode lives in. Not the moment where the world gets better, but the moment where you stop blaming yourself. You stop blaming yourself for a world that changed without asking you. This episode isn't about fixing everything. It's about recalibrating the compass after the old map stopped working. For a long time, the idea of a good life was clear. You didn't have to invent it. You inherited it. A stable job, a home, upward momentum, clear milestones. A sense that effort led somewhere predictable. The rules were simple enough that most people didn't question them. You followed the path, and you stayed on it long enough, and life rewarded you. That wasn't a fantasy. It was a function of the environment at the time. Then the world shifted. Costs rose faster than pay. Stability thinned, milestones moved, and safety nets frayed. But the scoreboard didn't change. People were still measuring themselves against standards built for a different version of the game. So even when they were surviving intelligently, they felt like they were losing. Not because they were behind, but because the metrics were outdated. This is a quiet tragedy of the moment we're in. People feel like they failed at a life that no longer exists. They didn't miss a step. They didn't misunderstand the instructions. The instructions changed mid-quest. And yet, the shame stuck. The shame isn't earned. It's inherited from a system that refuses to admit it's evolved. As stability vanished, success got moralized. If you're doing well, you deserve it. If you're struggling, you must have done something wrong. That framing is seductive and deeply damaging. It turns circumstances into character, luck into virtue, survival into failure. A good life became something you were judged for, instead of something you built within constraints. Here's what doesn't get acknowledged enough. People are winning, just not in ways that get applause. They are staying housed. They are staying healthy. They are supporting others. They are avoiding bad trades, choosing peace over prestige, and protecting their own time. These are real wins. They just don't come with ceremonies. No one throws a party for, I made it through another year without breaking. But that doesn't make it meaningless. The old definition of success rewarded speed. How fast you climbed, how early you arrived, how much you accumulated. But speed only works when the road is stable. When the terrain becomes unpredictable, speed turns very dangerous. The goal now isn't acceleration, it's viability. Can this life be sustained without burning you out? That question matters more than any milestone. For a long time, people tried to optimize their lives. More income, more efficiency, more productivity. But optimization assumes the system is fair. When the system changes constantly, alignment matters more. A good life now asks, does this cost me my health? Does this steal my time? Does this keep me anxious? Or does this leave room to breathe? Progress that destroys you isn't progress. It's just motion. This matters enough to say plainly. If you're focused on stability, on margin, on getting through the month, you are not failing at life. You are responding correctly to the difficulty setting you were dropped into. In games, no one mocks a player for switching to survival mode in a brutal environment. They understand the choice. Extend that grace to yourself. A good life now might not look like not being rich, but being okay. Not winning fast, but lasting. Not climbing endlessly, but choosing wisely. Or not having everything, but having enough. It might look smaller from the outside, but smaller isn't lesser. It's often truer. Here's the real reframe. You don't owe loyalty to a definition of success that no longer matches reality. You are allowed to update the metric. You are allowed to say, this works for me. This costs too much. This isn't worth it anymore. That's not quitting. That's finding clarity. If you've been carrying quiet guilt for not being further along, let it go. You weren't lazy. You weren't naive. You weren't wrong. You were playing honestly in a game that changed its rules. A good life now isn't about winning on the old scoreboard. It's about building something that makes sense in the world as it is today. Something livable, something humane, something that lets you sleep at night. That is not a form of settling. That is understanding and growing. That is wisdom. Remember, stay thoughtful, stay stubborn, and just know that choosing a life that fits isn't giving up. It's growing up. You're the main character in your own financial story. Every day, you write down a new page. But let's be honest for a moment. Right now, does it feel like the villain of your story is a monster named Debt? And do they have you written into a corner? Does it feel like you're surrounded? The walls are closing in, plastered with overdue notices and statements glowing with high interest rates. You've got this constant nagging feeling that you're working so hard, but only falling further and further behind. The script you're living feels hopeless. But what if I told you this isn't the end of your story? What if this isn't even the climax? What if this is the chapter where the hero, where you, discover the cheat codes, flip the script, and stage the most epic comeback imaginable. In this video, we're not just going to talk about debt. We are going to write your ultimate comeback story. We're going to arm you with the strategies, the mindset, and the battle plan to defeat every single type of debt for good. Forget what you think you know. Forget the shame and the stress. Your comeback story starts now. Does your wallet feel a little too thin? Does the end of the month arrive with a sense of dread instead of accomplishment? You're not alone in this fight. Not by a long shot. Total household income in the United States has exploded to a record-breaking $18.59 trillion. Now, before you panic, the biggest chunk of that is mortgage debt. But when you look at the average American carrying a total of around $104,000 in debt, including mortgages, auto loans, and everything else, it's clear this isn't just a personal problem. It's a national crisis. But today, we're making it personal. We're going to take those overwhelming statistics and break them down into a villain you can understand. And more importantly, a villain you can defeat. Every great story starts by understanding the antagonist. You can't defeat a monster you don't know. So before we learn the cheat codes, we need to do some recon. We've got to unmask this villain called debt and understand its power, its tactics, and its psychological warfare. First off, let's acknowledge the emotional toll. The financial world loves to talk about numbers. Interest rates, balances, the whole nine. But they often forget that debt is a feeling. It's that knot in your stomach when you check your bank account. It's that sleepless night spent staring at the ceiling, your mind racing with numbers and what ifs. It's the shame that makes you avoid hanging out with your friends because you can't afford it. It's the guilt of buying something small for yourself. It's the constraint, low-grade anxiety that follows you around like a shadow, whispering that you're not good enough, that you've failed. These feelings, they're the villain's primary weapon. They're designed to keep you paralyzed, to make you believe that the fight is too big and you are too small. But it's all a lie. That's the part of the script that we're here to rewrite. Recognize this emotional warfare is the first step to taking back your power. As one financial expert put it, debt payoff is not a math problem. It's a feelings problem. We get stuck in shame and fear, but today, we turn that fear into fuel. Now let's get tactical. In our financial video game, debt isn't a single boss. It's an army with different types of enemies, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. The two main categories are secured debt and unsecured debt. First, let's talk about the big one, the secured debt dragon. Secured debt is any debt that is tied to a specific asset, also known as collateral. Think of this like a giant, powerful dragons that are guarding something you own. The most common examples are your mortgage, where the dragon is guarding your house, and your auto loan, where it's guarding your car. Here's the deal with the secured debt dragon. Because the lender has your assets as a collateral, they face less risk. If you stop making payments, the lender can legally seize that asset. The dragon takes your castle, or your trusty steed. This is called repossession or foreclosure. Because the lender's risk is lower, they typically offer lower interest rates and higher borrowing limits. Sounds like a good deal. But the stakes are incredibly high. The risk to you is enormous. You could lose your home or your car. For this reason, the secured debt dragon is almost always your highest priority. You must keep this beast happy by making your payments on time, every time. Will you prepare to fight the rest of the army? Next, we face the unsecured goblin horde. Unsecured debt is the opposite. It's not tied to any specific asset. This is an army of relentless, screeching goblins. We're talking about credit cards, personal loans, student loans, and medical bills. With these goblins, there's no collateral for the lender to take. They can't repossess the dinner you bought with your Visa. Because of this, the lender takes on all the risk. And they make up for it by hitting you with a brutal high interest rate attack. The average credit card interest rates are hitting an eye-watering 22 to 24%. Those attacks are vicious. If you fail to pay the Goblin Horde, they can't seize your assets directly, but they will overwhelm you in other ways. They will send the collection agencies after you, like bounty hunters harassing you day and night. They can sue you, which can lead to your wages being garnished. And maybe most damagingly, they will relentlessly attack your player stats, your credit score, making it nearly impossible to get a good loan, rent an apartment, or even get certain jobs. Well, they don't guard a single treasure. The sheer number and ferocity of the unsecured Goblin Horde can drain your resources and your will to fight. With these two armies, you'll also see different attack patterns. Installment debt and revolving debt. Installment debt is a fixed boss fight. You borrow a lump sum once and agree to pay it back in a fixed, predictable payment schedule. Think of your mortgage, your auto loan, or a personal loan. You know exactly how many payments you have to make to win. The attack pattern is predictable. Revolving debt, on the other hand, is like an infinite dungeon. This is your credit card or your line of credit. You have a credit limit, and you can borrow, repay, and borrow again, over and over again. The entrance to the dungeon is always open, which is where so many heroes get trapped. The high interest rates mean the enemies inside multiply quickly, and because you can always go back in for more, it's easy to get lost in a never-ending loop. So, to recap so far, you've identified the emotional warfare the villain uses, you've unmasked the two main armies, the high-stakes secured debt dragon and the relentless unsecured goblin horde, and you understand their primary attack patterns. Your recon is complete. Now it's time for your training montage. Welcome to the training grounds. This is where you sharpen your sword, learn new spells, and prepare for the final battle. These are the cheat codes that will transform you from a character cornered by debt to a hero on the path to victory. Cheat code number 1, the map to victory, aka the zero-based budget. You would never go into battle without a map. A budget is your map. I know, the word budget is about as appealing as a trip to the dentist. It sounds restrictive and boring. For years, we've been taught to see budgeting as a cage. But that's just the villain's propaganda. A budget isn't a restriction. It's a permission slip. It's a strategic plan that tells your money where to go instead of you wondering where it went. It's the single most powerful tool in your arsenal. Without it, you're fighting blind. We're going to use a specific type of map, the zero-based budget. The concept is simple. Income minus expenses equals 0. You list your total monthly income at the top, Then you list every single expense you have, from your mortgage down to your morning coffee. Give every dollar a job before the month begins. This process is a revelation. It will show you, in stark black and white, whether your financial mana is being drained. You might find you're spending hundreds on subscriptions you don't use or lunches you don't even remember. That's not a reason to feel guilty. That's an opportunity. That's ammo you can now redirect from the villain's pockets into your own arsenal. This map shows you exactly where to gather resources for the fight ahead. Don't skip this step. Cheat code number 2. Choose your combat style, aka the payoff methods. With your map in hand, it's time to learn how to fight. There are 2 legendary combat styles for defeating debt: the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. There's a lot of debate about which is better, but the secret is this: the best one is the one you'll actually stick with. Combat style number 1, the debt snowball. This is the momentum builder. The debt snowball method is all about psychology and momentum. With this strategy, you ignore the interest rates. I repeat, pretend the interest rates do not exist. You list all of your debts except your mortgage, from the smallest balance to the largest. Here's the battle plan. Make the minimum monthly payment on every single debt, except for the smallest one. You take every extra dollar you found from your budget and you throw it at it, all at once. Attack the smallest debt with vengeance. Soon, that smallest debt will be gone, obliterated. And you get your first win. This is a powerful moment. You've proven to yourself that this is possible. But here's where the magic happens. You take the entire amount you were paying on that now dead debt, the minimum payment plus all the extra, and you roll that into the next payment for the smallest debt. Now you're attacking the second enemy with a much bigger weapon. When that one's gone, you take that combined payment and roll it into the third. See what's happening? Your payment amount grows, like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and faster with each victory. The power of the debt snowball isn't in math, it's in the motivation from quick wins that keep you in the fight. If you thrive on seeing progress, the debt snowball is your combat style. Combat style number 2, the debt avalanche. This one is the high damage attack. The debt avalanche is for the strategists, the mathematicians, the players who want the most efficient path to victory. With this strategy, you ignore the balances. You reorder your debts based on their interest rates, from highest APR to lowest. The battle plan is similar. Make the minimum payments on everything, except the one with the highest interest rates. You take all of your extra money and focus fire on that single target. That 24% interest credit card is your primary enemy. It's the goblin dealing the most damage every second. By targeting it first, you are strategically eliminating the villain's most powerful weapon. From a pure math perspective, the debt avalanche will always save the most money in interest and usually get you out of debt slightly faster. The downside? It can feel like a long, hard grind. If your highest interest debt is also a large one, you might be fighting that single boss for months without the satisfaction of crossing anything off your list. If you're a disciplined, numbers-driven person motivated by efficiency, the debt avalanche is your style. So, snowball or avalanche? The answer is personal. Need quick wins? Choose Snowball. Obsessed with efficiency? Choose Avalanche. Neither is wrong. The only wrong choice is not choosing at all. Cheat code number 3. Power-ups and buffs. These are the accelerators. Every hero needs a few power-ups. These are strategies to use alongside the main combat style to speed things up. Power-up number 1, the consolidation spell. This means combining multiple debts into a single new loan, ideally with a lower interest rate. Like a personal loan or a 0% balance transfer credit card. This spell doesn't vanquish any enemies, but it rearranges the battlefield to your advantage. It simplifies payments and reduces the interest you're paying, freeing up more ammo. But be warned, this is an advanced spell. A balance transfer is only a good idea if you have the discipline to destroy the original cards and pay off the balance before the 0% balance ends. Otherwise, you've just opened a new door into the infinite dungeon. Power-up number 2, the overdrive attack. This is the simplest, most effective power-up. Pay more than the minimum payment. The minimum payment is a trap. It's the slowest, most expensive path possible, designed to keep you paying for decades. Every single dollar you pay above the minimum is an overdrive attack that goes straight to the principal, the boss's main health bar. Next, let's increase your firepower. Let's talk about side quests for extra gold. While you're executing your main battle plan, take on some side quests to gather more resources. Side quest number 1, farm for more gold, increase your income. The fastest way to win is to increase your firepower. This could mean selling things around the house, taking on a few hours of freelance work, or finally negotiating that raise that you deserve. Every extra $100 is a powerful volley of arrows aimed right at your debts. Side quest number 2, conserve your resources. Cut your expenses. Go back to your map, your budget. Take a red pen and scrutinize every line. Are you paying for streaming services you haven't watched in months? Can you cut your dining out budget in half? This isn't about depriving yourself of joy. It's about being a ruthless general, strategically reallocating resources to the most important missions, your financial freedom. The ultimate side quest, forge your health potion. The starter emergency fund. This is so important. It's almost a main quest. Before you go all out, you need to complete this quest first. Save up $1,000, a starter emergency fund. Think of this as your one and only health potion. Life happens. The car will get a flat tire. The villain will launch a surprise attack. Without this potion, you'd have to reach for a credit card, inviting another goblin into the fight and undoing all your progress. This $1,000 buffer is your defense against the unexpected, allowing you to handle small emergencies with cash. Alright, now we're approaching the climax and the resolution to this story. The final battle and your victory. You've studied the villain. You've created your map. You've mastered your combat style. Now comes the final battle. And here's the secret. The final battle isn't one glamorous moment. It's the daily, unglamorous, relentless grind. It's choosing to pack your lunch instead of buying it. It's making that extra debt payment when you'd rather buy a new gadget or a new game. It's saying no to a weekend trip so you can say yes to your future. It's about consistency. It's about showing up every single day and executing the plan. There will be days you feel tired. There will be days you want to quit. But this is the climax of your story. This is where the hero digs deep and remembers what they're really fighting for. With every extra payment, you get stronger. With every debt you cross off the list, your power grows. You are no longer the character cornered by the villain. You are the hero, driving the villain back, one payment at a time. And then, one day it'll happen. You'll make a payment. But this will be different. It will be the last one. You'll hit submit on that final student loan payment. You'll watch the balance for your car loan flip to zero. And in that moment, there will be a deafening silence. The noise of the villain, the stress, the anxiety, the shame that has been your constant companion will all be gone. A weight you didn't even realize you were carrying will lift from your shoulders. You'll breathe, and the air will feel light. This is the victory scene. This is the moment you fought for. You have rewritten your script. The villain is defeated, and you are free. But the story doesn't end there. Defeating debt isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new one you wrote for yourself. The massive snowball payment you were making to your debt doesn't just disappear. It now becomes your tool for building wealth. It's the down payment for your dream home. It's your retirement fund. It's the ability to give generously, to travel, to start a business, to live life on your terms, not the bank's. So, what's the game plan again? It's simple. First, you study the villain, the secured debt dragon, and the unsecured goblin horde. Second, you draw your map with a zero-based budget. Third, you choose your combat style. The motivational debt snowball or the effective debt avalanche. Fourth, you gather power-ups by increasing your income, cutting expenses, and building a $1,000 starter emergency fund. And finally, you fight. You fight with consistency and intensity until you win. Your comeback story starts now. The script is in your hands. Have you ever launched something that you were so proud of, only to fear that you're a complete fraud? That feeling isn't a sign that you're unqualified. It's a sign that you're leveling up. And in this video, I'll share the power-ups that you need to stop feeling like an imposter and start building your empire. I'll never forget my first real client. The invoice was paid, and instead of celebrating, I just felt dread. The only thought in my head was, what if they find out that I'm faking it? That feeling is called imposter syndrome, and many entrepreneurs struggle with it. It's a paralyzing feeling that makes you think you're not cut out for this. But that feeling isn't a stop sign. It's a sign that you're entering a new level. And like any game, you need the right tools. Today, I'm sharing 3 tactical power-ups that took me from feeling like a fraud to building with confidence. The first power-up is the scanner. In a game, you can scan a new enemy to learn its weakness. You can't defeat an enemy you don't understand. For us, that enemy is imposter syndrome. The simple act of naming it takes its power away. It stops being an internal truth and becomes an external force that you can fight. It's no longer, I am a fraud, it's, I am experiencing imposter syndrome. That small shift changes everything. So next time that voice of doubt creeps in, stop and use your scanner. Say out loud, there's the imposter syndrome. By recognizing it as just a thought pattern, you interrupt its attack. Then use this affirmation. I am courageous. My fears activate my courage. Power-up 2 is the achievement log. Imposter syndrome makes you forget your victories and magnifies all of your little mistakes. Your job is to fight back with data. I started a simple folder in my email called Wins. Every time a client sent a positive email, I tagged it. On bad days when doubt was screaming, I'd open that folder. It didn't erase the disappointment of a setback, but it gave me proof that one setback isn't the whole story. Your mission? Start your own achievement log tonight. Write down 3 things you accomplished this week. A finished project? A nice comment? Log it all. Your doubt thrives in a vacuum. Fill it with proof. When you log a win, use this affirmation. My work makes a difference. I have what it takes. Speaking of wins, what is one win you're proud of this month? Let me know in the comments below. Reading them reminds us all that we're making progress. The final power-up is the respawn mechanic. Self-doubt uses every failure as proof you are an imposter. You have to reframe that. In video games, when you're defeated, you respawn, but usually keep the experience points. You're smarter. Failure in business is a data gathering event. I have launched many businesses that have completely flopped. The imposter voice was louder than ever, but I treated it like a lost round, not a lost game. I asked, what XP did I just gain? I realized my marketing was unclear. That failure provided a priceless education. Always take one thing from all of your failures and move them forward. The next time you face a setback, analyze the data. Ask, what was I trying to do? What happened? And what XP did I gain? This turns failure from a painful event into a strategic one. As you do this, use this affirmation. I transform obstacles into opportunities. Alright, let's recap the 3 power-ups. First, the scanner. Name your self-doubt to disarm it. Second, the achievement log. Build a case for your own competence. And third, the respawn mechanic. Reframe failures as XP to level up. The goal isn't to eliminate self-doubt. If you're pushing boundaries, you'll feel it. It just becomes a signal that you're growing. The difference is, now you have the tools to fight back. You are not a fraud. You are an entrepreneur in training, and this is part of your journey. If this guide was helpful, hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more power-ups to share. Remember, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Now get out there and start building your empire. You've cut the lattes, you've canceled the subscriptions, you are following all the budgeting rules. So why in the world do you feel more trapped than ever? If your budget is supposed to be empowering, but instead it's making you anxious and miserable, you definitely are not alone. And guess what? It's not your fault. We're about to unpack the psychological toll of all of this financial pressure and why that budget of yours might be the very thing making you depressed. So you did the responsible thing. You sat down, you stared at your income, you tracked all of your expenses, and you made a plan. This budget was supposed to be your roadmap to financial freedom, right? Your ticket out of money stress. But instead of feeling in control, you feel suffocated. Every single purchase, even necessary ones, comes with a side of guilt. The joy is just gone, replaced by this constant humming of anxiety. You are not buying yachts, you're just trying to buy groceries. But you are obsessing over every dollar. It feels like you're on a treadmill, making payments and cutting back, only to end up back where you started, right at square one, with no safety net and a crushing sense of failure. And that feeling, that's the budgeting paradox. You're doing exactly what the financial gurus are telling you to do, but your mental health is footing the bill. The numbers might be adding up, but your happiness is slowly subtracting. If you've totally lost the motivation to even look at your finances anymore, you're not imagining things. It's a classic psychological response to being under intense, prolonged pressure. You get stuck in a loop where the stress of your money makes it impossible to manage your money, which, you guessed it, just creates more stress. So why is this happening? It's really easy to blame yourself and think you're just bad with money. But let's zoom out for a second. We are living through a major cost of living crisis, where prices for absolute essentials feel impossibly high. It's no surprise that for many people out there, the last few years have been brutally stressful. In fact, 2/3 of people now cite their finances as their number one source of stress. What you are probably feeling is something called forced frugality. This isn't the cheerful, aesthetic minimalism you see on Instagram. This is an involuntary, soul-crushing, belt-tightening that triggers a scarcity mindset. Your brain becomes so hyper-focused on what you do not have that it can spiral into an anxiety and a depression. The connection is real, and it is serious. Studies confirm that people struggling with debt are more than twice as likely to suffer from depression. When you are constantly battling rising costs, and stagnant wages, your nervous system gets stuck in survival mode, and nobody can thrive there. Okay, so the old way isn't working. It's time for a new playbook. The first step is a powerful mental shift. We have to stop seeing our budget as a restrictive cage and start seeing it as a plan to our freedom. A traditional budget always seems to focus on what you cannot do and what you have to cut. A freedom plan, on the other hand, puts the focus back on what you want to do with your life. It's a subtle change, but it makes a world of difference. Instead of calling it a budget, try calling it your cash flow plan, or even your life plan. And trust me, this isn't just a word game. It changes the entire emotional dynamic. The goal is no longer just to scrape by. The goal is to strategically point your money toward the life that you actually want to live. This means finally admitting that wants are normal, a healthy part of being human, not some kind of moral failure. The key is to be intentional, though. When you plan the things that you want, you give yourself permission to spend on them without the guilt that ruins the whole experience. This reframe helps you move from a mindset of deprivation to one of real empowerment and choice, even when things are tight. We all have a different relationship with money, and I'd love to hear your story. What's the one thing from this video that has resonated with you? Are you going to try calling it a freedom plan? Let me know in the comments below. Reading through the experiences of others can be a powerful reminder that you are not alone in this. Look, a complete financial overhaul is way too overwhelming. So let's forget that and start with a small, manageable step that actually makes a difference. First, track your spending for 1 week without judgment. Just observe. Don't change a thing. This isn't about shaming yourself into submission. It's about gathering data. Awareness is always the first step. Second, identify one soul-crushing expense. Is there a subscription you never use but hate paying for? A recurring fee that makes you angry every time you see it? Find it and cut it. The feeling of taking back control, even with one tiny area, is incredibly powerful. And third, this is the most important one. Schedule guilt-free spending. Look at your new freedom plan and build in a line item for something that brings you joy, no matter how small. It could be a fancy coffee from Starbucks. It could be a movie ticket. It could just be a new book, whatever brings you joy. By planning for it, you're officially giving yourself permission to enjoy it. It's no longer a reckless impulse. It's a part of the plan. Your budget should not be a source of misery. It should be a tool that serves you and your goals. By understanding the outside pressure making things so hard, reframing your plan around freedom, and taking small, concrete steps, you can start to break the cycle of financial anxiety. You are not alone in this, and you absolutely have the power to change your story. If this video resonated with you at all, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I release a video every other day on plenty of topics just like this one. Thank you for watching, and remember, stay stubborn and stay thoughtful. It feels like in 2026, the kindest people are the ones hurting the most. In a world that seems to be getting more and more negative, just being a good person is now treated like a weakness, a trick, or even worse, an open invitation to be taken advantage of. This is the story of why that's happening, and what it is doing to the genuinely nice people who are being punished for something that should be celebrated. We are not talking about just being polite. We are talking about the deep, soul-crushing weight of being too nice. Have you ever felt like your generosity is a currency that everyone else spends but you? You're the one who stays late, the one who always listens, the one offering a helping hand. But when you're the one who needs support, silence. Your efforts are just expected, and the one time you can't show up, you're the bad guy. This isn't just bad luck, it's a strange paradox of the world we live in now. We are surrounded by performative kindness, acts of compassion that feel like they're designed for an audience. Think of the public donation post, or the perfectly filmed act of charity. These gestures, even when they mean well, have bred a culture of suspicion. This widespread performance of goodness makes it harder to trust real kindness. So, people view genuine compassion with a cynical eye. This leaves authentically kind people in a tough spot. Either their sincerity is mistaken for manipulation, or it's seen as a weakness to be exploited. The too nice person can become invisible. Their own needs and wants constantly steamrolled until they're completely neglected. They end up feeling drained, resentful, and utterly alone. Punished for a quality that should be their greatest strength. So, why does this happen? It boils down to a few psychological traps that nice people fall into. First, there's internalization responsibility. Kind people often feel like it's their job to fix everyone else's problems, which makes them forget to protect themselves. They squash their true feelings to avoid a fight, bottling up all that stress, which can show up as headaches, chronic anxiety, or even a weakened immune system. Second, they get hit with a gratitude expectation gap. There's an unconscious belief that if they give, they'll eventually get something back. When that doesn't happen, it morphs into a deep disappointment and self-doubt. This is how you end up in a one-sided relationship where you're constantly pouring yourself out with nothing coming back in. And finally, the most destructive trap, tying your self-worth to what others think. Many kind people base their value on the approval of others. This creates a dangerous dependency on outside validation that can trigger a full-blown identity crisis. Psychologists call the end result empathy fatigue. It's like an emotional overdraft from always putting others first. This burnout isn't just a feeling, it's your mental health and the balance in your relationships slowly eroding. You are not just being nice, you are often acting out of a fear of being disliked, and that fear is keeping you stuck. If you have ever felt that emotional drain, or that sting of your kindness being taken for granted, you are definitely not alone. This is a conversation we all need to be having. And if this is hitting home for you, consider subscribing. We talk about how to handle the messy, complicated parts of being human in this modern world. Here's the truth. The solution isn't to stop being kind. It's to stop being nice. There is a huge difference. Niceness is often a performance, a defensive mechanism you use because you're afraid of conflict or rejection. It's about being liked. Genuine kindness, on the other hand, comes from a place of real empathy and inner strength. It's compassion mixed with self-respect and solid boundaries. This means shifting from unconditional self-sacrifice to what you might call wise giving. It all starts with recognizing that true kindness has to include being kind to yourself. And that means having the courage to protect your own peace. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Any compassion you offer when you're running on fumes will feel forced and brittle. There is zero shame in stepping back to recharge. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius saw kindness not as a weakness, but as a sign of true inner strength. That is the goal, a kindness so rooted in your own self-worth that it doesn't need anyone else to validate it. It becomes intentional, not forced. It's about learning to set boundaries without feeling guilty and truly understanding that no is a complete sentence. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. And when you stop being available 24/7, you teach others to respect what you have to offer. So, in 2026, being nice isn't wrong, but it might be dangerously naive. The real path forward is to evolve from a nice person into a genuinely kind person, someone who acts from a place of authentic compassion, but also from a place of strength, wisdom, and self-preservation. That's the kind of kindness that doesn't lead to burnout or resentment. It's the kindness that can actually survive and even thrive in a negative world. So I'll leave you with this. What is one boundary you can set this week to start practicing a kinder, more honest relationship with yourself? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. Your stories matter. Remember, stay stubborn and stay thoughtful. What if the best way to manage your stress wasn't on a mindfulness app, but inside the sprawling digital world of a video game? It might sound like a distraction, but getting lost in a virtual landscape can be one of the most powerful things you can do for your mental health. It's more than just a hobby. For millions of people, it's how they truly unplug from the relentless pressure of daily life. And this isn't just a feeling. There's real science behind it. When you drop into a massive open world game, you're not just mashing buttons, you're giving your brain a much needed immersive break. Psychologists sometimes call this cognitive escapism, which is a fancy way of saying you're not avoiding your problems, but you're setting them aside to let your mind breathe. Games like The Legend of Zelda, or Skyrim, or even Red Dead Redemption 2 are masterfully designed to pull you in with huge open worlds that give you a sense of freedom we don't always get in our structured lives. And the research backs this up. Studies have shown that the kind of mental escape provided by these games can lead to significant increases in relaxation and overall well-being. It works because these games let us disconnect from our daily worries, creating a mental space to just recover. People who take part in this research often describe their gaming time as a kind of meditation, a way to find a little peace and switch off the noise of the real world. But the benefits go way deeper than just chilling out. Playing video games in moderation has been linked to some seriously positive mental health outcomes. It can be a powerful distraction from feelings of anxiety and depression, helping you build up your emotional resilience. Think of it like a workout, but for your brain. Playing a game demands your full attention, which creates a state of flow, that feeling where you're so locked in that everything else just melts away. These games also give us clear goals and a sense of purpose. Whether you're finally taking down a tough boss in Witcher 3 or building your dream house in Minecraft, you're hitting real milestones. That feeling of accomplishment does wonders for your confidence and self-esteem. One person might find peace just exploring the beautiful hills of Hyrule, which can feel as calming as a walk in the woods. Another might get a release from the strategic thinking needed to solve a complex puzzle. That sense of mastery is a huge part of why gaming can feel so good. If you have ever found your own peace exploring a digital world, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments what game is your ultimate escape. And if you're getting something out of this, be sure to subscribe for more just like this. I release a new video every other day. Of course, the kind of game you play really matters here. Take role-playing games, RPGs. Their deep stories and character development can feel almost therapeutic, letting players explore different ways of thinking through problems in a safe space. The social side of gaming is also a huge factor. Research suggests that playing with friends or family can be a major buffer against anxiety and depression, much more than playing alone or with random strangers online. On the flip side, super high pressure competitive games can sometimes wind us up instead of helping us unwind. It's all about finding what restores you. For one person, it might be building something amazing with your friends in Minecraft. For another, it's a shared adventure in an online MMORPG, like World of Warcraft. The key is to be mindful about it, to play for relaxation, not as a compulsive escape. So the next time you're feeling the weight of the world, just remember that picking up a controller might be one of the best things you can do for your mental health. Video games aren't just an escape from reality. They're a journey into a world that can truly heal us, restore us, and even empower us. They give us freedom, purpose, and connection. A powerful antidote to the stress of modern life. And they prove that sometimes the best way to find ourselves is to get a little lost in another world. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. I used to think that making more money would solve all of my problems and bring me more total freedom. But now that I am financially stable, I actually track my spending more than I ever did when I was broke. It feels tighter. But here's the crazy part. I've never felt more free. It's a weird paradox, I know. When I had no money, I was a walking ball of stress. I'm sure you know the feeling. The constant weight of bills, the fear of an unexpected car repair. It's exhausting. It messes with your sleep, your mood, and everything. I used to lie awake, dreaming of the day that I would have to nervously check my bank account balance before buying groceries. Well, that day is here now. I have a steady job and savings in the bank. But instead of popping champagne and buying things on a whim, I feel tighter. Like every dollar has a purpose. Every expense is tracked. And yet that dark cloud of anxiety that used to follow me around, it's gone. It's been replaced by an incredible sense of calm. I've learned that the link between money and happiness is way more psychological than I ever thought. And it really came down to 3 big changes in how I looked at everything. The first thing I had to do was completely change my definition of financial freedom. My old fantasy was about having so much money, I'd never have to think about it ever again. Just endless cash to buy whatever I wanted. But I've learned that real freedom isn't about having a bazillion dollars. It's about having control over the dollars that you do have. It's about being intentional. Back when I was broke, I had zero control. Money controlled me. Every paycheck that came in was already spoken for. The anxiety I felt was really just the feeling of total helplessness. Now, by tracking everything, I'm the one in charge. Knowing exactly where my money is going, even if it feels restrictive at first, gives me a sense of power I never had before. The goal shifted from chasing some impossible pile of cash to simply having control. The second big shift was learning to embrace what I call intentional scarcity. I know it sounds awful, but hear me out. It was the most liberating thing that I did. When you've truly been broke, you often get a scarcity mindset stuck in your brain. It's a nagging fear that you'll never have enough, and it just breeds more anxiety. So I decided to flip that idea in my head. Instead of living in fear of scarcity, I chose to create my own scarcity with a deliberate budget. By giving every single dollar a job, this is for bills, this is for savings, this is for fun, I created my own set of rules. And weirdly, those limits are exactly what set me free. Why? Because it gets rid of the guesswork and the guilt. I don't have to torture myself over small purchases anymore. If I want to grab a coffee, I don't do the stressful mental math. Trying to calculate my entire financial situation on the spot? No. I just look at my fun money in the budget. If the money's there, I can enjoy it. 100% guilt-free. Having a plan is like a buffer against life's little surprises, and it lets you actually sleep at night. The last and probably the most important change was making sure my spending actually lined it up with my values. When you're stressed about money, it's so easy to fall into a trap of mindless spending just to feel something. You get a little bit of dopamine hit from the new gadget or the trendy shirt, but it never lasts. Now, my budget forces me to ask one simple question before I buy something. Does this truly make my life better? And this isn't about being cheap. It's about being purposeful. I realized I couldn't care less about having the newest phone or a closet overflowing with new clothes. What I really valued are the things like weekend trips with people that I love, learning a new skill, or just my own peace of mind. So I started cutting back, hard, on the things that didn't matter. And I funneled that money toward the things that actually did. Spending money on my actual values gives me a deep sense of satisfaction that no impulse buying could ever compete with. And that's the heart of the paradox of being tighter and more selective with my money. I've built a life that feels intentionally richer and more carefree. This whole thing has been about progress, not perfection. It's a constant process of checking in with myself and what I want out of life. But man, it has completely transformed my relationship with money for the better. Let me know in the comments below if you think this would help you. Think about subscribing for more videos just like this. I release a new video every other day. So yeah, my finances feel tighter than I ever thought they would back when I was dreaming of being secure. But that tightness isn't a cage, it's a foundation. It's the structure that got rid of my anxiety and let me live a more present and truly liberated life. I've learned that ultimate freedom isn't about what you can buy. It's the peace of mind you get from knowing you're in control. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. Are you feeling like you're drowning in debt? Like you work so hard, but you can never seem to actually get ahead? And that feeling of stress, it just follows you everywhere, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't have to be this way. What if I told you there's a proven plan that has helped millions of people climb out of debt and take back control of their lives? In this video, I'm going to walk you through a simple step-by-step method that just plain works. It's called the debt snowball. And it might just be the ray of hope you've been looking for. And if you've heard of Dave Ramsey, he promotes this all the time. If you have ever tried to get out of debt, someone probably threw a bunch of complex spreadsheets at you and said, Okay, focus on the highest interest loans. But let's be real, debt isn't just a math problem. It's an emotional problem. The weight of it can feel absolutely crushing. What you really need isn't some complicated formula. You just need to get a win. This is why it's so helpful to remember a core idea in personal finance. It's about 80% behavior and only 20% of head knowledge. The best plan for you is the one that you will actually stick with. And that's where the debt snowball comes in. It is designed to change your behavior by giving you the hope that you need. The debt snowball method is a strategy where you pay off your debts from smallest balance to largest balance, no matter what the interest rates are. It's all about building momentum. As you knock out each small debt, your confidence grows and your payments get bigger, just like a snowball rolling downhill. Here's how you get started. First things first, list all of your debts from smallest balance to the largest one. Don't even worry about the interest rate right now. Just get everything down on paper so you can see a clear picture of what you're up against. Step 2. Keep making the minimum payments on all of your debts, except for the smallest one. This keeps all of your accounts in good standings while you focus your energy. Step 3. Attack that smallest debt with every extra dollar that you have. This is where you get intense. Comb through your budget, find places to cut back, maybe even pick up a side hustle. Do whatever it takes to throw as much money as possible at that smallest debt until it's gone. Once you have paid off that first debt, you get to do the best part, the snowball roll-up. This is where you'll really start to feel the momentum build. Step 4, take this entire amount that you were paying on that first debt, the minimum payment plus all the extra cash, and roll it into the minimum payment of the next smallest debt. Let's imagine for a second you have 3 debts: a $500 credit card with a $25 minimum, a $1,000 personal loan with a $50 minimum, and a $2,000 car loan with a $70 minimum. Let's say for a second you manage to find an extra $200 in your monthly budget. You'd go after that $500 credit card with $225 a month. That is the $200 extra that you found in the budget, plus the $25 minimum. In just over 2 months, it's completely gone. You just got your first win. Now you take that full $225 and add it to the next debt. Your payment on the $1,000 loan is now $275 a month. That's the $225 from the original plus the $50 minimum on this loan. You can see how quickly that one will disappear too. And step 5 is to just keep repeating this process. As you eliminate each debt, your payment snowball gets bigger and bigger, and you will start knocking out the remaining debts at an incredible speed. Now, some people will argue, but shouldn't you pay off the highest interest rate first? And that is called the debt avalanche method. And mathematically, they are right. It can save you some money in interest. But remember, personal finance is mostly about behavior. The trouble with the avalanche method is that it can take a long time. A long time to pay off that very first debt. And a lot of people lose motivation and just give up. The debt snowball method is different. It is designed to give you a quick win right out of the gate, which delivers a powerful psychological boost. Those early victories prove to you that you can do this. That is the momentum that will carry you all the way to the finish line. Getting out of debt is not fancy. It is a journey, and you can start it now. You have the steps, you have the plan, and most importantly, you have hope. So take that first step. List all of your debts. Find that extra money. Get that first win and start your snowball rolling. You are in control, and a life without debt is waiting for you. What is the first debt that you are going to knock out? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more tips to help you win with your money. You got this. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. You might think of journaling as just a way to clear your head. But what if I told you you could physically upgrade your immune system and change how your brain responds to stress? Science says it can, but there is a catch. You have to do it in a specific way. The practice you're about to learn isn't just about feeling better, it's about fundamentally changing your brain and body, and it's backed by hundreds of peer-reviewed studies. Let's be real, modern life can feel like an endless stream of notifications, deadlines, and a constant low-grade hum of anxiety. Your mind is cluttered, and finding a moment of peace feels next to impossible. So maybe you've tried journaling. You grabbed your notebook, write Dear Diary, and you list off what you did today. And nothing really changes. That's the myth of journaling, that any kind of writing will unlock these incredible benefits. But this isn't Dear Diary stuff. This is a neuroscience-backed protocol designed for a biological upgrade. The truth is, how you journal determines the results you get. Most people are using a butter knife when they could be using a scalpel. The real power is in a technique called expressive writing, pioneered by Dr. James Penbacker at the University of Texas. His research found that when we write about emotionally significant events, we're not just venting, we're setting off a cascade of positive neurological and physiological changes. Here's what's happening. When you're stressed, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, is on high alert. Expressive writing helps you make sense of those stressful events, which in turn calms the amygdala down. At the same time, it strengthens your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles logic and emotional regulation. Think of it like taking your brain to the gym. You're literally rewriting it to be less reactive and more resilient. But the benefits aren't just in your head. Chronic stress floods your body with a hormone called cortisol, which can suppress your immune system. While some studies note cortisol levels can briefly rise during the writing itself, the long-term effects of the practice are linked to better health outcomes, like a stronger antibody response to vaccines and fewer stress-related doctor visits. So, how do you actually do this? Here's the science-backed protocol. It's simple, but it does take commitment. First, there's the expressive writing. The most common protocol asks you to set aside 15 to 20 minutes for 3 to 5 sessions, often on consecutive days. Your task is to write about your deepest thoughts and feelings about the most stressful or upsetting events of your life. Explore how it has affected your past, your present, and your future. The key is to truly connect with the emotion of that event. Don't worry about grammar or spelling. This is for your eyes only. Just write continuously until the time is up. If that feels a little bit intense right now, there is another powerful, scientifically validated method called gratitude journaling. This practice can help rewire your brain for happiness by stimulating the release of dopamine and serotonin. For 2 weeks, take just 5 minutes each day to write down 3 to 5 specific things you are genuinely grateful for. The more specific, the better. So instead of just writing, "I'm grateful for my partner," try, "I'm grateful for how my partner made me laugh today when they told that silly joke." This simple habit has been linked to better sleep, lower blood pressure, and improved mood. This isn't wishful thinking. The results are documented science. People who follow the expressive writing protocol see significant improvements. For example, the practice can free up mental resources that were tied up with intrusive thoughts, leading to a measurable boost in working memory and focus. The physical results are just as compelling. Studies have shown that participants experience fewer days in the hospital and even show improved lung and liver function. It's one of the highest impact wellness tools out there, and it costs nothing more than your time and attention. So, the secret's out. Journaling isn't just a tool for mental clarity. It can be a protocol for physical transformation. Whether you choose the deep dive of expressive writing or the consistent positivity of gratitude journaling, you're giving your body and brain a profound advantage. You have the ability to lower your stress, boost your immunity, and build a more resilient mind. Now that you know how to rewire your brain with a pen, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. I post a new video every other day. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. Does it feel like your paycheck just evaporates? You're not imagining things. Have you ever stared at a grocery bill or a gas receipt and just thought, how is this even possible? You are definitely not alone. Let's break down the real reasons why life feels so unaffordable, even when the news tells you things are better than ever. There is a huge gap between what the official numbers say and what we're actually feeling in our bank accounts. We keep hearing that inflation has cooled, and the latest numbers show the annual inflation rate holding steady at about 2.7% as of December in 2025. But if it's not getting worse, why does everything still feel so punishingly expensive? Here's the hard truth that they don't say out loud. Cooling inflation doesn't mean prices are back down. It means they aren't climbing at the crazy speed that they were before. All those record high prices from the last few years, for most things, they're the new normal. This isn't a temporary blip, it's a long-term affordability challenge. And that's what makes it so frustrating. Polls consistently show that the cost of living is the number one stress for most people. When we get a raise that feels earned, a reward for our work, but the price hikes feel like they're being forced on us, slightly erasing any progress that we make. It's a quiet crisis that is eating away at our savings and our sense of security. Nowhere is this crisis more obvious than in the search for a place to live. If you've even glanced at the housing market recently, you know it feels broken. To give you some perspective, the Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index went from 239 in January of 2020 to 328 in late 2025, a jump of nearly 38%. A surge that used to take a decade happened in just a few years. This isn't just a string of bad luck. It's a full-blown housing trap. Mortgage rates are still high, putting monthly payments out of reach for many people. At the heart of it is a severe housing shortage that's been decades in the making. Experts point to the perfect storm of factors: restrictive local zoning laws, a lack of construction workers, and even institutional investors buying up properties. The result is that an entire generation feels locked out of homeownership. It's forcing young adults to delay their independence and stopping families from planting roots. It feels like a fundamental breakdown of the promise that if you just work hard, you can have a place to call your own. If this is hitting close to home, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps prove this isn't just a handful of people feeling the squeeze. And if you want to keep making sense of these economic forces, make sure you subscribe. This isn't just about the roof over your head. It's the food in your fridge, the gas in your car, and the cost of a doctor's visit. We've all seen the prices for essentials like groceries and personal care go up, and it feels like we have no control. And there are other things economists are watching that could keep the pressure on. For example, some analysts worry that recent tariffs could push inflation higher in the coming years, as businesses may pass those extra costs onto the consumer to protect their bottom line. This isn't just some abstract economic theory. It's a potential hit to your wallet every time you go to the store. This has become the new reality for so many of us. We're constantly on guard, watching prices for things we absolutely need creep up. What's the most ridiculous price hike that you've seen lately? Let me know down below in the comments. So if you feel more stressed and pessimistic about money, you're not making it up and you are not alone. There's even a name for this now: the vibe session. It's the deep in your gut feeling that the economy just isn't working for regular people, no matter what the official reports claim. And that feeling isn't entirely baseless. Well, the unemployment rate has remained relatively low. Job growth has slowed significantly. With 2025 being the worst year for job creation since the pandemic. This creates a disconnect. The economy seems okay on paper, but many people feel a growing sense of uncertainty. The path to a stable middle-class life is starting to feel more like a maze than a roadmap. Let's be real, the affordability crisis is hitting hard. Stubbornly high prices for everything you need, a housing market that feels impossible to break into, and constant financial pressure mean your money just doesn't buy what it used to. This is not personal failure. You didn't mess up your budget. You didn't slack off at work. You are navigating the fallout from huge systematic issues that are changing the way our economy works. And by talking about it, we can see that it is not just a me problem. It is a we problem. People are feeling overwhelmed because the pressure is real and it is relentless. So share your story in the comments below. What does this affordability crisis feel like for you? Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. There was supposed to be a deal, a kind of contract, signed by generations before us and then handed down. It was simple. Go to school, work hard, be loyal, and in return, you'd get a stable career, a home that you could actually afford, and a future that you could count on. But for millions of us, the contract is broken. We held up our end of the bargain, but the rewards, they never really showed up. Instead, we got record-breaking debt, soul-crushing professional pressure, and this constant, humming stress that became the soundtrack to our lives. This isn't a pity party for a lazy generation. It's the story of a broken promise. The story of our stress really kicks off with a global epidemic earthquake, the 2008 financial crisis. Just as many of us were graduating from college, optimistic and ready to go, the entire job market vanished. This wasn't just a little bump in the road. Economics say it left a permanent scar on our financial lives. Studies show that millennials who graduated into that recession started out earning way less than previous generations, a gap that most of us have never been able to close. We were told we were playing by the rules, but it felt like someone had rewritten the entire game overnight. To even get a foot in the door of this new hyper-competitive market, a college degree went from being a good idea to an absolute requirement. So we invested in ourselves. The result? We became the most educated generation in history, but also the most indebted. The average student loan for a millennial sits at about $40,438. That's not just a number. It's a weight that has forced us to delay buying homes, getting married, or starting families. It's the price we had to pay just to get into a game that feels rigged from the very start. With all of that debt, we faced a housing market that had gone completely off the rails. The national home price to income ratio is still incredibly high, way above what's considered normal. What does that mean in plain English? Well, even with a degree and a decent job, the dream of owning a home feels impossible for a huge part of our generation. We're stuck renting for longer, unable to build the kind of security our parents and grandparents took for granted. The professional world we walked into is just different. That old promise of a stable 9 to 5 with pension, it's been replaced by the gig economy, short-term contracts, and a relentless hustle culture. We live in a world where we're always on, always connected, and the line between work and life has been completely erased. This non-stop pressure has made millennials the most burned out generation, with some reports showing 66% of us feel it on a regular basis. That's even higher than the Gen X and Gen Z. And this isn't just a feeling a little bit tired, it's a deep soul-level exhaustion, both physical and mental. Money worries are one of the biggest drivers for this. Nearly half of all millennials have had a panic or an anxiety attack just thinking about their finances. On top of it all, many of us are becoming the new sandwich generation. Caught between the staggering cost of raising our own kids while also trying to care for our aging parents. It's a perfect storm of pressure, and it is taking a huge psychological toll. So if this sounds like your story, you are not alone. Share your experience in the comments below, and let's all talk about it. So yeah, we're all stressed. We're all anxious. We are definitely tired. But if you think that's the whole story, you're missing the most important part. We are a generation that was forged in a crisis, and that has made us resilient. The old finish lines, the house, the 30-year career, the straight and narrow path, they don't apply to a lot of us anymore. So we are creating new ones. Success isn't just a job title or the size of a mortgage now. It's about finding a real work-life balance. It's about protecting our mental health. It's about building communities and finding a sense of purpose outside of those old traditional structures. The broken promise forced us to look for meaning in places our parents might have overlooked. We might be the generation that was handed a broken contract, but we're also the one that's rewriting it from scratch. The stress is real, but so is our fight to build a different, more meaningful future for ourselves. The constant stress that defines the millennial experience isn't a personal failure. It's a completely understandable reaction to a system of challenges we were never prepared for. By understanding the forces that shaped us, from the 2008 crash to student debt to the insane demands of modern work, we can finally give ourselves a break and stop blaming ourselves. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. Forget the New World Order you've heard about. The future isn't being decided in Washington or Beijing. It is being forged in capitals you might not be watching. And the world they're building for 2026 is messier and way more fascinating than anyone ever predicted. For a long time, the world operated on a pretty simple premise. After the Cold War, two big ideas for a new world order popped up. One was from Mikhail Gorbachev, who imagined a cooperative system with shared European values and a stronger global institution. The other was George H.W. Bush. His version was a unipolar moment, a world led by the United States, freer from terror. And for a while, that American-led world was our reality. But that era is over. The global order is cracking. And no, this isn't about conspiracy theories or secret groups plotting on single world government. The reality is something much more complex and happening right out in the open. It's a shift away from one dominant power to a world that's best described as multipolar. And in this new game, a whole new class of players are stepping out onto the field. Welcome to the age of the middle powers. These are nations that aren't quite superpowers, but have more than enough economic, diplomatic, and military muscle to shape their own regions and even influence the world. They're refusing to just be pieces on a chessboard in the game between the US and China. Take India. It's performing a delicate balancing act on strategic autonomy. New Delhi works with the US on security in the Indo-Pacific, while also being a key member of the BRICS group with China and Russia, and positioning itself as a leader of the global south. Then look at Turkey, straddling Europe and Asia. Ankara has turned itself into a key diplomatic power broker. It plays its own game, which sometimes causes friction with its NATO allies. But by building up its own defense industries and managing crises from the Black Sea to Syria, Turkey is proving it can't be ignored. And you've got Brazil, an economic giant in South America, re-emerging as a regional leader and a voice for the developing world, tackling everything from climate change to reforming global finance. And don't forget Saudi Arabia. With its Vision 2030 plan to move beyond oil, Riyadh is using its economic and diplomatic power to become a major hub for global trade, investment, and meditation. These nations aren't choosing a side. They are choosing their side. They're practicing multi-alignment, creating a web of different partnerships to maximize their own power and freedom. These changes are happening faster than most people realize. And if you want to stay ahead of the headlines and get the real story, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. This new global competition isn't just about land anymore. It's being fought on new playing fields. The first is technology and resources. The race for everything from AI semiconductors to the critical minerals needed for green energy is creating new alliances and new tensions. Middle powers are even forming their own coalitions, like a potential OPEC for lithium, to gain more leverage. The second battleground is global trade. As the world rewires its supply chains, countries are fighting to control the key corridors that move goods around the planet. This isn't just about money, it's about strategic power. Finally, the fight is happening in diplomatic halls. Groups like the expanded BRICS, which now includes countries like Egypt, Iran, and the UAE, and represents nearly half of the world's population, are becoming a real counterweight to Western-led institutions. The conversation is no longer just about who is on top, but who gets to set the rules. So, what do the new rules look like in 2026? Well, for starters, alliances are more fluid and transactional. Think of them less like marriages and more like short-term contracts. Foreign policy is becoming less about big ideas and more about very specific national interests. This makes the world more volatile and unpredictable, as regional conflicts can bubble up without a global referee to cool things down. The US and China rivalry is still a huge deal, but it no longer dictates everyone else's moves. Instead, middle powers are smartly navigating the space between the two giants, playing them off each other to reduce risks and seize opportunities. They are creating their own strategic wiggle room through flexible, issue-by-issue partnerships. The world of 2026 is experiencing a great fragmentation. The unipolar moment is a distant memory, and we are not heading for a simple rerun of the Cold War. Instead, we are in a messy, contested, multipolar world defined by the rise of confident and independent middle powers. This new era isn't necessarily more dangerous, but it is a whole lot more complex. It's a world where power is spread out, alliances are temporary, and the future is being written not by one or two authors, but by many. What does this mean for you? It means more uncertainty, for sure, but also new opportunities as the global deck gets reshuffled. The big question is no longer who will lead the world, but how all these competing powers will manage to coexist. Which rising power do you think will have the biggest impact in the next decade? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want me to dive deeper into this, be sure to leave a like. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. For the past 10 years, crypto investors had a cheat code. It was called the 4-year cycle. It was tied to something called the Bitcoin halving. The plan was simple: buy before the halving, wait for the prices to rise, then sell about a year later. It worked so well that people started treating it like a rule. But what if that rule doesn't work anymore? What if that cheat code expired? The crypto market has changed, and investors who are still using the old playbook are getting hurt. Think back to late 2025. Everyone expected a huge rally. People were talking about a super cycle. They were waiting for Bitcoin to explode in price. Instead, the market dropped. At the end of 2025, Bitcoin actually closed the year down about 6%. That had never happened before in a year after the halving. So what happened? Is the 4-year cycle finally dead? In this video, we'll explain why the old pattern is breaking and we'll show you the new forces that are now driving crypto. Things like ETFs, stablecoins, and the global economy. Bitcoin has something built into its code called the halving. About every 4 years, the reward miners get for creating new Bitcoin is cut in half. This lowers the amount of new Bitcoin entering the market. Here's what happened. In 2012, reward dropped from 50 to 25 Bitcoin. 2016, from 25 to 12.5. 2020, from 12.5 down to 6.25. And 2024, from 6.25 down to 3.1. Each time, less Bitcoin was created. When supply goes down, the demand stays strong. Prices usually go up. And that's exactly what happened. Bitcoin peaked in November of 2013, December of 2017, and November of 2021. This pattern seemed perfect. Buy before the halving. Sell about 12 to 18 months later. Easy. But now, that pattern is breaking. The first warning sign showed up in 2024. Bitcoin hit an all-time high before halving. That had never happened before. In past cycles, new highs came after the halving. Then came 2025. According to the old rules, that year should have been huge. Instead, momentum slowed down. The last part of the year, usually the strongest, was weak. And for the first time ever, a year after the halving ended in red. That shocked a lot of investors. But it's not enough to say the cycle is dead. We have to ask why. The answer is simple. The market has changed. Bitcoin is no longer just driven by small retail investors. Big institutions and global economic forces are now in control. If the halving is not the main driver anymore, what is? 3 big forces have taken over. 1, the ETF effect. In January 2024, spot Bitcoin ETFs launched in the US. An ETF is a product that lets investors buy Bitcoin inside normal brokerage accounts. This made it easy for big investors, like pension funds and investment firms, to buy Bitcoin. The demand was huge. Some ETFs bought Bitcoin more than miners were producing. BlackRock's ETF alone grew to over $60 billion in assets in less than just 2 years. This brought steady, powerful money into crypto, not just hype from regular traders. Number 2, the rise of stablecoins. Stablecoins are digital dollars. They are tied to the US dollar and used inside crypto markets. The stablecoin market is now worth over $280 billion. These coins are used for fast global payments, business transactions, and moving money between exchanges. They make crypto more stable and useful. This real-world use, not just speculation. Governments are now making rules around stablecoins, which makes them even more accepted. And number 3, Bitcoin as a global asset. Bitcoin is no longer in its own bubble. Its price now moves with the global economy. When central banks print money and add liquidity, Bitcoin tends to rise. When interest rates go up and money gets tight, Bitcoin often drops, just like tech stocks. That means things like Federal Reserve decisions inflation data, and global money supply are now just as important as the halving. Bitcoin has grown up. It now plays in the same league as other major assets. If you want to understand this new crypto world and stay ahead of these big changes, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. The old rules won't protect you anymore. You need a new strategy. If the 4-year cycle is no longer reliable, what should you watch instead? Number 1, watch ETF flows. Pay attention to how money is going in and out of Bitcoin ETFs. When billions are flowing in, that shows strong demand from institutions. 2, watch global liquidity. Keep an eye on global money supply and central bank policy. When liquidity expands, assets like Bitcoin usually benefit. Interest rate cuts now matter more than the halving dates. And 3rd, watch real adaptation. Look at stablecoin growth and real-world use. Also watch tokenization, where things like real estate and bonds move into blockchain systems. The more crypto connects to the real economy, the less it depends on a simple 4-year pattern. Some analysts now predict Bitcoin could reach $150,000 to $200,000, but based on these new drivers, not the old halving cycle. Let's be clear, the simple 4-year cycle tied to the halving is no longer the main force in crypto. The market has changed. Now the biggest drivers are institutional money through ETFs, massive stablecoin liquidity, and global economic forces. The easy strategy of following a calendar might be over. But a smarter strategy based on the real capital flows and global trends is just beginning. The investors who adapt will win. The ones stuck watching the old halving clock may get left behind. What do you think is the biggest force moving the market now? Let me know in the comments below. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn. Do you ever feel like you're always racing the clock? Like life has turned into a long to-do list? Notifications, deadlines, messages, chores. It feels like something is always pulling you in 10 different directions. You rush from one thing right into the next. Then the day ends. You're tired? But when you stop and think about it, what did you really do? What actually mattered? What if there was another way to live? A way to feel calmer. A way to feel like you actually have time. A way to enjoy small, quiet moments again. Slow living isn't about quitting your job or moving to a cabin in the middle of the woods. It's about paying attention. It's about living on purpose. So today, let's write our own simple guide to slow living. In today's world, being busy feels important. People brag about how much they have going on. We're told to hustle, to work harder, to do more. But living this way has a cost. Many of us feel anxious all the time, like we're always behind, like we can't catch up. Some people call this hurry sickness. It's when you feel rushed, even when nothing urgent is happening. I know you've probably felt this. You're working, chasing goals, keeping up socially. On paper, it looks great, but inside, you're exhausted. You rush through your meals, you half listen to what your friends were saying, and your mind was always on to the next task. You were moving fast, but you weren't really living. Some people think slow living means being lazy, but that's not true. It doesn't mean doing everything slowly. It means doing things at the right speed. It means choosing what matters instead of trying to do everything. Slow living is about being present. It's about caring more about the meaning than looking busy. The first step isn't slowing down. It's waking up and asking, is this pace helping me or hurting me? When you're always rushing, your body feels it. Your brain stays in stress mode. Your heart beats faster. Your muscles stay tight. Over time, this can lead to anxiety or burnout. Slow living helps your nervous system calm down. When you pause and breathe, your body resets. Studies show that slowing down can lower stress hormones and improve focus. There's also something called time affluence. That means feeling like you have enough time. People who feel this way are happier and less stressed. Instead of multitasking, slow living teaches monotasking. That means doing one thing at a time. Drink your coffee without your phone. Finish one task before jumping into another. Take 5 minutes to sit in quietness. You don't need an hour of meditation. You can start small. Schedule 5 minutes of nothing into your day. Sit, walk, breathe. Those small, quiet moments help your brain reset and recharge. Have you ever been with someone you care about, but your mind was somewhere else? Slow living helps you truly show up. When you're not rushing, you listen better. You notice small details. You make eye contact. And you ask deeper questions. Being present tells people that you matter. There's a movement called slow food that started in Italy. It began as a protest against fast food. But it was about more than just food. It was about sitting at a table, talking, taking your time, and enjoying each other's company. You can practice this in simple ways. Have one phone-free dinner a week. Take a walk with a friend and really listen. Write a short thank you note to someone. Small acts of attention build strong relationships, and strong relationships are one of the biggest keys to a happy life. When life feels rushed, we choose what's quick: fast food, skipped workouts, late nights. Slow living helps you treat your body with care. Start with food. You don't need to cook fancy meals. Just try making something simple at home. Sit down, taste it. Don't eat standing over the sink. Turn your meals into moments, not just fuel. Move your body gently. Not to punish it, not to burn calories fast, just to feel good. Take a walk outside. Stretch in the morning. Spend time in nature. Being outdoors clears your mind. And don't forget sleep. In a world that praises being tired, getting enough rest is powerful. Sleep helps your brain and body heal. When you eat well, move gently, and rest deeply, you create real energy, not just caffeine-fueled survival. When you slow down, you start to notice what you truly need. You may realize you don't need as much stuff as you thought. Start by clearing out what you don't use. A less cluttered space often leads to a calmer mind. Then, before buying something new, ask yourself, do I really need this? Will this last? Slow living often leads to buying less but choosing better. You may start supporting your local shops, repairing things instead of replacing them, and just wasting less. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being thoughtful. When you consume less and appreciate more, your life feels lighter, and the planet benefits too. Slow living looks different for everyone. For some, it's gardening. For others, it's reading for 20 minutes each night. For you, it might be something completely different. So tell me, what's one small step you want to take toward a slower life? Share it in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else. And if this speaks to you, consider subscribing for more content about living with intention and peace. Slow living isn't something you master overnight. It's a daily practice, a gentle return to what matters. It means calming your mind, strengthening your relationships, caring for your body, and living more simply. You don't have to rush through life to live it fully. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is slow down enough to actually experience it. Remember, stay thoughtful and stay stubborn.